these three men you're seeing on your screen.
People, please, I want you to take your time and make sure you watch this video I'm about to show you. These people have gone to draft out the plans of each of these presidential candidates, these three people, the kind of plans they have, the kind of their manifesto. They have compressed it and made it in a very simple way to understand, so that you know the kind of plans these people have. You will know that amongst these three top candidates that we have right now, that some of them, what they are just doing is trying to find a way to convince people to vote for them. But if you go deep down, you know that what they are writing out or what they are saying is something that they cannot achieve. Now, it has already been confirmed from this video that, in short, let me not say it, but you are going to know the person with the best idea and the person with the most easily possibly to achieve idea amongst the three of them. Now, I want you to watch this video. Take your time and watch it from the beginning to the end. No matter what you are doing, make sure you watch it before you cast your vote on the 25th of February. God bless you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. You remember last week, we did a lot of analysis. We, in fact, spent the whole program trying to make sense of the manifestos of the three candidates that we selected to analyze. That Peter Obi of Labour Party, Bola Tinubu of the APC, and Atiku Abubakar of the PDP. But tonight, what we are going to do is to put their ideas and their manifestos side by side and look at which of them you need to, as a voter, make your choice with, and look at who has the best ideas for your choice on the 25th of February 2023. So I'm being joined by the co-founder of Budget, Mr. Seun Onigbinde. Thank you so much indeed, and it's good to have you back on the program tonight.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. It's eaten up. We're just about 24 days away to the election.
Yeah,
let's dive into it. And so we're looking first and foremost about their philosophy.
Yeah.
What are these telling us? Side by side, we're seeing these three philosophies. What do you make of it?
So we start with the philosophy of Atiku Abubakar, and we said that it's pro-business. He wants to make sure that the private sector is a key driver, and I think it's focused on the small businesses, restructuring, and most especially expanding opportunities and growth. So a pro-business, a private sector guy. Even on health, on education, a lot of his policies and commitments on that we need to let private sector be the engine of growth. When you're taking on Bola Tinubu, there's a huge push on private sector, but he also wants to spend big. He believes the government needs to spend big, that orthodoxy, with the economy orthodoxy around the fact that we need to raise interest rate to fight inflation, and all of those things have to be heavily questioned. So big on spending, a lot of interest in rapid and scalable industry, investment in infrastructure, and also focus on agriculture. So he's trying to also build these agricultural clusters across his geopolitical. So the same thing when you see Mr. Peter Obi also mentioned agro clusters across region. And like you will say, it's big on reducing cost of governance, dedicated the whole food page into cost of governance, streamlining and saying even that we need to streamline personnel costs. There's no reason why someone in another agency and another person agency are handling a disparate size of amount of money. And also talk about rebuilding Nigeria's production engine. And I think when you look at the three of them, it's like people say it's the economy stupid. This is what they center their conversations upon as people. But if you dive deeper, if you dive deeper to the economy, which is the next page, you will say that.
So before we go there, so I was going to say now, so it's distinct in their individual personalities and the perspectives that they have in, Bola Tinubu, for example, who's been the governor of Lagos, they're talking about industrialization, cluster. Peter Obi had made it clear that he wants from production that Nigerians need to produce what we consume. But Atiku has made it clear in 2019, he said it, that he wants privatization and the private sector to take a lead in all of that, perhaps lead us into the issue of economy. So we know for sure, side by side, Nigerians can know which and how these candidates stand, isn't it?
Yeah, because
does it affect the economy? That philosophy?
It affects, because if you look at Bola Tinubu, is big on continuing what the current president is doing. Spend big on infrastructure. Make sure that you put a whole lot of people behind it as an engine of growth. And I don't know where the revenue would come from for that kind of outlay that is promising.
The spending that is pushing.
That is pushing forward, because we know that there is a bill in the National Assembly to securitize around 23 trillion naira. So we don't know, and that's also fallout of the huge spending that President Muhammadu Buhari's government has done.
He has a huge experience in the finance sector, right?
Yeah, and I think
maybe he has some ideas that we do not know about.
Maybe we do not know, and also has an experience in raising taxes. I mean, growing Nigeria was one of the biggest points in Lagos. So maybe something is going to happen in the non-oil taxes that we don't know yet. Maybe there are some levers that are grossly inefficient that we have to do. But you see that he's big on youth unemployment. He wants to drive the economy at 10% growth. Nigeria has never grown above 7%. So if
that's going to be some miracle.
That's going to be a miracle. And it means that an annual growth of 10% is a very few frontier economies that have been able to drive
What is IMF projecting? What is Nigeria projecting?
We're projecting around 3 to 4%.
So Tinubu says he wants to do 10%.
And I think, and you know that we had a slump. So it's like you're coming from a slump and you're going up. There's still an opportunity for you to grow big. But now he wants to do 10% on an annual basis.
He's not climbing. He wants us to fly.
He wants us to fly. That is a whole lot. And it's same thing if you look at Atiku and interrogate her deeply. He wants to make sure that our GDP per capita gets it to $5,000 by 2030, which means you want to double the quality of mental standard of living within a period of 7 years. That is a whole lot of work.
He also wants us to fly.
Yeah, he wants us to fly.
Instead of GDP growth.
Yeah, because it means that you are going to, even what the implication of what is said there means that we have to grow around 13% annually if we're going to be able to.
Are they realistic though?
It's people talk about people govern in prose, they campaign in poetry. There's a lot of poetry in all of these things, a lot of buzzwords. And it's the same thing that I want to ask about, even the fact that, and some possibilities like 2.5% for FDI, which comes to somewhere around 10 billion, you should be able to do that annually. But Peter Obi also made a whole lot of promise too. He wants to shift off from consumption to production as an economy. And he also wants to diversify the economy for engine growth. There was a big push on export. And I think if one was listening to him over time, he's big on the fact that we consume a lot. We need to be an economy that an export engine, and we need to be a production economy. Same thing Bola Tinubu said. Same thing that Atiku also said. Yeah. But I think Peter Obi had a strong emphasis on that.
In the last 2 days, Bola Tinubu has been hammering on making. He told them in Abia State, he told them in Anambra State that he's going to make them a hub for industrialization and trade and commerce. So he said that in those two southeastern states, perhaps. I mean, if you go to Abia State, where you have Aba as a major trade hub in the country, I mean, if you tell them that kind of message, it will resonate, isn't it? And Anambra State, you have you have a lot of companies like Innosing and the rest. I mean, when you tell them that you want to make an industrial hub, it does sound good, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the pathway for Nigeria's growth. We cannot leap because services is a chunk of our GDP. It's not providing the kind of jobs in terms of numbers that we want. Industrialization and scalable agriculture is what we have to do in some sort of way and put a mix around that area. And I think for that emphasis on industrialization and it's also been an outlet in resolving youth unemployment, it's something that cuts across. But they just have different approaches when it comes to it.
The political economics of it is my problem. That all of these promises are very good. I could make promises to you, Sheil, that I will buy you this, I will get you that, but do I have the wherewithal to be able to do it? That's a big question. Make Nigerians happy, but do they have the wherewithal? Do we have what it takes to be able to change these things around within this frame of time that they have given?
There's a fiscal space you have to engage, and that takes us to the next page. Because when you look at the monetary and fiscal policy they've put forward, you're a country where FG revenue is around 5 trillion naira in the last few years, maybe sometimes even a little bit less than that. We're spending around 14 trillion naira, I mean the federal government alone. The question is, there's a huge gap that has been taken from borrowing from domestic and international market, and the rest the CBN has been supporting in that regard. There is not a lot of room for the federal government to be able to apply on these things. That's why there has to be a big conversation about where does the private sector come in play on all of this. Because the more you keep getting government to do things, one, government is very inefficient in allocation of capital. And the second challenge you will have is also that if you're putting a lot of money into space that are not asset backed, it will lead to inflation and deterioration of your policy.
So, I mean, how deep are we in terms of monetary policy and our circumstance as a nation when it comes to about monetary policy and fiscal policy also put side by side? How are we doing? So now, because I'm asking this question so Nigerians can understand just how deep we need to move out and the promises that these gentlemen are making to Nigerians. If you have to drag someone out of the pit, You need to know how deep that pit is. How deep are we in that pit?
For the monetary policy, if CBN is targeting inflation and is doing that by continuous increases in the benchmark rate.
And inflation is in double digits.
And inflation is in double digits, not just in double digits, in its 20s.
It's the 20s.
So it's a problem that if you want to say, I need some fiscal space, because we all got here by CBN doing more than necessary. At several intervention programs. So the CBN even became more important than the Ministry of Finance, something that is not supposed to happen even in the fiscal space. So you have CBN taking
spend the most money in agriculture at some point.
That's right. So you have people CBN doing both monetary and fiscal policy side by side. So it's going to be you're going to see that contention about you want to reduce inflation, and at the same time you also feel that government needs to engineer the economy.
The question of ways and means and how we're going to find our means away from the trouble that big question mark has left us is another one. Anybody who becomes president out of the 18 guys who are running for president is going to have that burden to be able to deal with, isn't it?
Because it's going to be a big burden, because don't forget that when we securitize now, then definitely we have to pay interest on those loans. We have to pay back on those loans. That we are suffocating already. Around 80% used to service debt.
What are these guys saying? In comparative analysis.
I think he wants to create an infrastructure debt fund. So I think there's a bit of sense in ring-fencing fund for infrastructure. If you're going to use funding coming from the budget to fund infrastructure, it would never be enough. Something the Buhari government has done with the Sovereign Wealth Investment Fund.
And it didn't work.
It worked some extent. So you have things like the Second Niger Bridge, the Gossiba Express. Those things add a bit of acceleration because you were able to put some funding aside, or maybe you call it MSPV if that's appropriate.
Don't use that word. People have gotten in trouble. So.
But Tinubu talks about progressive tax regime. There's a huge political economy conversation here around the review of the fiscal allocation formula, which means you want to give more money to states. How feasible is that, even if, as the federal government itself is sweating? And also reduction in the cost of governance. It says it wants to put a cap on government expenditure, which is something I found also interesting. Obi talks about reducing cost of governance, and he made a big point, only one around the Oron Sire report, that he wants to put down on the table.
As a big gateway to get out of that mess.
Yeah, because we have close to over 700 government agencies, and so many duplication and so many streamlining that needs to be done.
The three of them have very lofty ideas, isn't it?
Yeah, they have lofty ideas, but I think you would see a bit of change in terms of Tinubu still wants to be a bit of restructuring inside. Atiku also has some point on restructuring, but if a Tinubu wins, for example, there will be a bit of contention between CBN trying to target inflation, bringing inflation, and also he wants to also spend big and also engineer us to growth.
That's two tough things to do at the same time.
Yeah, definitely.
But security now. On
security, and if we start from, Atiku talks about restructuring and decentralizing policing, and also hiring over 1 million people, personnel into police force. As we discussed last week, that's contentious because you want to decentralize, you also want to expand the federal policing system. And I don't think he's talking here about hiring policing for the decentralized system, because that will be out of his remit. But you have Tinubu saying also anti-terrorist battalions. I found that there are so many battalions that have been created specifically for the Navy, for the military, for the Army. They are like special squads for fighting terrorism. So why do you want to put a bit of duplication in that regard? Improvement of salaries, talked about welfare. For B, security talked about, I like security because he also connected to the justice system. Because it is a view that military also just can't stand as alone. The civilian element of it is also critical to us harmonize that together. And also it committed clearly. I don't think President Bola Ahmed Tinubu committed directly to state policing, in his manifesto. He didn't make a very, very verbatim commitment to say, I would do state policing.
I thought these two guys, Peter Obi and Bola Tinubu, being former governors who have distinct ideas on the tiers of policing in the country. Peter Obi mentioned it. He spoke about improvement of salaries. He spoke about also money to be spent and wondering where these monies will come from. That's a big deal. Employing people, it costs overhead again. Yeah.
Yes, it's a lot. And like I said, a lot of people campaign, but by the time you come down to the numbers, you see it's going to be difficult. This is where most of the big spending will be. And there's a huge chunk of, everyone is talking about increasing our oil refining. Atiku thinks we need to improve our refining capacity to 2 million. We're around 1 million by the time we factor in Dangote, Bua, and what we have currently and in terms of what it could do. And there's also a huge push on private sector driving the infrastructure. We talked about the infrastructure fund. being warehoused. For Bola Tinubu, there's a huge point of infrastructure has to be the engine of growth. And I think it's also continue the APC philosophy, and something close to, what we heard spoke about last week, that the party itself has a philosophy. The candidate has a philosophy. There's a marriage.
So there's a link.
And I think if you're looking at linking Bola Tinubu with Buhari's position, is that infrastructure is a key driver. We need to keep spending. Obi also talks about world-class infrastructure. I'm struggling that there was no commitment in terms of numbers on his side. But he talks about power systems, road, rail, air transportation. But I still struggle with the fact that he was a bit vague on what exactly.
But does he really connect with the philosophy of his party? Labour Party, to a large extent, it's supposed to be labor-related. I mean, workers-oriented. Does his manifesto reflect all of that?
I didn't say that, because you also want to say, and I think that's where a lot of people find conflict, to say, how labor unions could be big on securing jobs. And sometimes it could be highly inefficient, take-home payment, and also even if
affordability of commodities and all of that.
If you want to streamline things, I feel on some certain level of cost of governance is great. But by the time push comes to shove, you have to start sacking or retrenching people. There will be challenges.
Let's race through these sectors. Health. What did you find out between the three of them?
Health is good, but I like the fact that Bola Tinubu talks about mandatory health insurance program to cover at least 40%. But the timeline is what I'm worried about. 2 years. We're around 6%. To take you to 40% is a whole lot of work. Obi talks about putting 15% of the national budget into health. But somewhere less than 7%. So if you want to do 15%, it's a huge push. And you also have competing government priorities. Atiku, as usual, talked about transition to universal health, but not a lot of commitment. But he's also big on the fact that the private sector can unlock opportunities for health. But I don't know. Health should be a right. So the private sector handling it.
And the UN benchmark is about 15%, isn't it? For education and health. So, I mean, is that reflective here too?
For health, for education, nobody made a commitment directly on budgetary allocation.
Are you disappointed?
I am in some sort of way. And I think, the challenge is that there's a huge push on the fact that there was no road now. There is a road here now. Well, and that's why I drive through state capitals now, and you see beautiful nose, bright green, and you ask that, is that the economic activity happening in here? But for someone like Obi on education, he spoke about the fact that we need to rejig the digital skills. It was really big on the fact that young people should have digital skills. And I think it was because of the demography that he's also engaging with. Tinubu had a huge point on the fact that student loans and also the out-of-school children. And Atiku talked about the fact that the tertiary education system needs to be better regulated. All of them have great ideas, and I don't think anybody has any of this stuff. Obi was great on Siemens. I'm still shocked that Bola Tinubu didn't make a direct categorical reference to this point, because Nigeria is committing a whole lot of money, and there's a huge promise and opportunity there. Obi talks about a solar revolution. Atiku wants to get us the same kind of party that we have with Siemens. And finally, and I think that on small businesses, it's still out there in hanging. But at the end of the day, if you look at all the arguments, this is not the sole decision for people to go into the polls.
No, but I mean, fantastic job you've done at the Civic Hub and budget. Thank you so much, Sean, for coming. And look, I mean, Nigerians have been presented with these ideas.
Now, having seen all this video, you could have seen that Peter Obi has a roadmap. He has a roadmap already. He had, like, his manifesto is his daily statement. Everything he says on daily basis is his manifesto. While the other presidential candidate is busy insulting and abusing people in different campaign grounds, rather than focusing on his manifesto, exposing his manifesto to the general public, he's busy looking for who to talk down about and the rest of that. And Atiku Abubakar also talked a bit of his manifesto, but Atiku does not have a clear vision of what the job is all about. I want you to understand me very clearly. Atiku Abubakar does not have a clear vision of what the job is all about. And if you listen to the way his own this thing is, you will know that from his own, you would realize that some of the plans he make, or he has written down, or he has penned down, does not really reflect to achievable, possible things that he can achieve within the period of time he has stated. In some cases too, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu also have similar issue. But here, if you come to Peter Obi's own case, he states it and he makes it clear to understand. Like when you come to education, Peter Obi has said that no child will be left behind he's going to set a policy of no child left behind. This is very clear. This is one of the plans that if it's implemented, you will realize that, for example, during the school hour, no child should be found on the street. Every child must be in school. This is agenda that is very, very achievable. Even by just stating it verbally, once you just state it, it takes effect. That any child seen at home or on the street during school hour should be, the parents should be arrested. When you just make this pronouncement alone, it clears the children out of the street. This is a roadmap. Now, he has also reinstated on power. When it comes to power, he said he's going to leverage on the solar system in the northern part of Nigeria. And also, he's going to be bringing foreign bodies to come and work on this. And he has promised that within 4 years, he's going to lift Nigeria from 5,000 megawatts to 25,000. And he has stated how he's going to do it. So there's a roadmap, there's a clear vision. Now, unlike Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who will just pronounce the number and the date, but no roadmap on how to get there. Atiku Abubakar does not understand the job. That is from my own view. He doesn't understand the job because the way he says it, he says so, like he said he was going to give us 10,000 megawatts in 2025. In 2020, is it 2025 he said? Yeah, 2025 or 2037. He only quote numbers and time. Quoting numbers and times, probably even, as a matter of fact, some of the numbers he's quoting, even the analysts will tell you these things are not achievable. So this is a clear vision. Now I want you to go and get your PVC. And I want you to make your choice in this election. And when you're making your choice, make the best choice, make the wisest choice, make a choice that you can trust and make a choice that you can count on. Remember, Bola Ahmed Tinubu was the person that told us that we should trust Buhari on his behalf. He used himself as a collateral for us to trust Buhari, and we trusted Buhari. You cannot take somebody who gave you poison to take. You should not trust that person to be a medicine to your sickness. Okay? Now, the damage that Buhari has caused, Tinubu should not be the best pill to cure that damage right now, because he was the one that gave us this, that gave us Buhari himself that caused the damages. So now, Tinubu should not be the best pill to cure the damages. Right now, Nigeria should be sourcing for alternatives. And the alternative is not even Atiku Abubakar, but Peter Obi. You may take it you may interpret it in any way you like, but this is my own point of view, and I strongly advise you to see from the perspective I'm seeing this. I'm sure that if we should give Peter Obi a chance, he's going to prove to Nigerians that governance in Nigeria has always been about the few elites. He's going to transform and turn the table around, and then the poor masses are going to come into play. We are going to be represented fully. Help me to share this video, and God bless you.